This episode is brought to you by 180 Markets, where it is our goal to bring every individual, fund manager, family office, or any qualified investor access to Australian Stock Exchange capital raises. If you are ever interested in how to access ASX capital raises in a super simple way, 180 Markets is for you. The sign-up process is easy. You just upload your ID, proof of your investor status, and your current brokerage account information. The settlement of shares goes right into your existing account, and you can access our very next capital raise. If you're interested in free, easy access to thousands of ASX capital raises, including placements, IPOs, reverse takeovers, and more, check out 180markets.com. Everybody, welcome to another 180 Markets Management discussion. Friends, there's a best-selling book out right now by the actor Matthew McConaughey called Green Lights, and it's absolutely worth a read. But specifically in one of the chapters, he talks about the art of running downhill. When things are going well, you got to press. And I can't think of a better chapter and a better discussion than with our friend today, Chris Daws of Estrella Resources, because he certainly is running downhill. And he's going to talk to us more about his massive discoveries, what they have so far. By the way, it hasn't been lost on the market because the stock is up about 1,000 or 1,500% for the year. So, but there's certainly more to come. And with that introduction, Chris, welcome back.
Greg, thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure to be back. Hello, fellow shareholders. I'm sure you're listening in, and happy shareholders at that. It's exciting times.
Absolutely. Hey, Chris, as I said, it seems to like there's just one positive announcement after another. This really could be a carboy, a generational asset. But there's even more good news to come. And maybe just for people that aren't quite so familiar, just give maybe a couple of minute background, and then maybe we could press on to like what is really up and coming.
Yeah, look, thanks, Greg. Bit of background. Look, Estrella has a stellar run over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. We drilled what we're calling now the $100 million hole, hole 30 at Carboy Rocks, approximately 80 kilometres northeast of the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. And that particular hole hit very high-grade, massive nickel sulfides, going over 3.5% nickel, almost 3 metres of massive sulfides, which was confirmed in assays. The broader intersection averaged over 1% nickel. So in the scheme of things, what we managed to tag in a stratigraphic hole and the reaction of the market was nothing short of spectacular. We think the result that we have made and released this morning likewise is quite spectacular. It proves a few things. It proves that the hole that we hit in hole 30 was not a one-off. It wasn't a localised nickel sulfide. And we saw that by evidence of the downhole geophysical survey, which showed that the geophysical extent of that area around hole 30 was quite extensive. So what we've done over the course of the last few weeks is drilled a number of holes, and they've been testing the area surrounding hole 30. And what we've announced this morning is hole 33, which has intersected over 25 metres of nickel sulfides disseminated to massive nickel sulfides, which again will carry nickel, reasonably high grades of nickel and sulfur, nickel and copper in that intersection when it's assayed over the course of the next few weeks. So extremely exciting. It affirms the geophysical response out of hole 30 is telling us that there is a substantial body of nickel sulfides surrounding hole 30. And we're now attacking that. We've got 2 diamond rigs on site, and they are currently drilling ahead, and they are testing now below hole 30 and north and south. We will test north and south of that as well as we expand out on this discovery. And at this stage, it's open-ended. This particular hole that we released this morning, obviously giving us huge confidence now that we're really onto it. Having one hole into it in hole 30 is one thing, but having now 2 holes, and certainly within the next few weeks, I believe we'll have multiple holes into this high-grade nickel sulfide body. For our shareholders and people watching, it'll be something quite spectacular, I think, over the course of the next few weeks.
Absolutely. And I again, to your point about this really, in some ways, confirms exactly what the market, what has been updated over the last month. But A, it's always nice to see, and B, would you say that it's even further giving you confidence in your mind?
Yeah, look, thanks, Greg. It does give us gives us huge confidence when you're hitting nickel sulfides, when you're predicting where the model plate is, and then you're hitting it within meters of the model plate. It does give you an enormous amount of confidence. But actually seeing it in the drill core and knowing what it is, there's one thing having an EM anomaly and drilling to it, but there's another thing pulling out the core and actually visually seeing what that is. And obviously the assays are the next component, and obviously the assay of hole 30. From our point of view, was nothing short of very rewarding in terms of the grade at 3.66% in the massive. It's above the sort of global average of these deposits. The global average is sort of sitting around that 2.5% nickel. So if we can find a big body of massive sulfide that averages around 3.5% nickel, it's going to be above world average. So we think we're going to kick a fairly big goal there once we actually find this pool of sulfides, and we think it's very, very close. So we'll continue to drill and we'll continue to look for that, and we'll continue to get some pretty spectacular intersections, I think, as we did this morning.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned the world average, that this is above grade. I think that for viewers, it's so important to know that now is the time in nickel as well. The supply demand is getting greatly out of balance, as in we need a lot more demand. For those of you that don't know, there is an electric vehicle revolution that's going on with no signs of slowing down. Look at Tesla, General Motors announced great numbers. So the demand for nickel is there. Chris, back to the point of going downhill again, we have to strike while the iron is hot, so to speak. You've announced that there's some activities coming up to really get things moving in the right direction, some more infrastructure and so forth and so on. What should we be looking for out of Estrella as far as what are the mechanical things you're going to be doing, say, like over the next 6 months to really get us moving forward as quickly as possible?
Yeah, look, Greg, very good question. Obviously, we're making those changes and have made those changes already. As you would have seen yesterday, we've made an announcement. Key management changes have been dealt by us. We're putting in place some key structural changes within the business. I'm actually now moved into the role of managing director, up from chief executive officer. So I'm at a board level now where I can actually be a part of the decision-making process. As part of that decision-making process, we've strengthened that through the introduction of a new non-exec director of technical, Neil Hutchinson. Neil Hutchinson's obviously been part of the exploration component of T5 discovery through geolithic, but we're bringing on as a non-exec director as we're strengthening our exploration expertise within the company and as we grow. So that's occurred. Neil will join us on the board as a technical director. And the other key appointment that we have made as of yesterday, he'll be joining us in January, on January the 11th, is Steve Warner. He's the current exploration manager for Poseidon Nickel, who's obviously been heavily involved in some of those discoveries at Silver Swan, 30 kilometres away from us. So he obviously sees a huge amount of potential for carboid rocks and what it means. And as all geologists do, they want to be part of the next big discovery. And obviously he sees a massive amount of potential for carboid rocks, and he's leaving one great mine. In fact, it was the greatest nickel sulfide mine in the world for a period of time, the highest grade nickel sulfide mine in the world for a number of years. And here he is leaving that after 14 years and wanting to make another big mark on his resume. And so he's coming across January the 11th, and that'll be a huge addition to our team. So with Neil Hutchinson, who's obviously been involved in the Azure Andover discoveries as well, with the guys up there, have been a huge success as well. We've got some real technical smarts within the business that we really understand what we're doing and what we have ahead of us. And we're building, and we have built a significant structural change and team that will be able to deliver T5 and other prospects, because we've expanded the targeting external to T5. We've been continuing to look for other avenues and other opportunities. And we've uncovered, as we released earlier in the week, the off-hole anomaly in the old historic Defiance hole, 1.8 kilometres to the south. That's a very significant situation where we've got another high conductive target sitting 1.8 kilometres to the southwest of T5 in a known nickeliferous environment. when we'll test that shortly as soon as we can get another rig, as we improve the camp and infrastructure, which we are obviously doing with some vigour at the moment. We've had our first flights down on the airstrip. That's in full use. We've been moving personnel in and out there. We obviously have upgraded the access road. We're now moving camp and equipment and fuel dumps and etc. and the like, so that we can maintain a fairly active regime of drilling holes, basically allowing this personnel to be in a reasonable environment instead of in gypsy camps. And we're now in a reasonable environment where we can work and operate 24/7 and actually deliver significant results. And that's what will occur over the next few weeks. And as we proceed into the new year, we'll keep drilling holes and we'll keep delivering results, and we'll expand on what we've already found.
Absolutely. And Chris, as I said, you've announced some, obviously, bringing Neil and Steve on, and I'll get to them in a second. But as far as the infrastructure, I think that for people that don't know, right now it is very hard to get a lot of equipment out to sites. There's a lot of demand. So in your mind, the ability to kind of move quickly, run 24-hour, having the right people on the ground with the improved airstrips, are those in your minds like the kind of like what I call getting dirty, mission critical elements?
Yeah, look, that's an extremely good question, Greg, because we're seeing it at all levels. You pick up a phone and you go and talk to some of the service providers and suppliers, and you think you've found what you're looking for, and you're looking for the cheapest option. So you do a few more phone calls and you get a few more quotes, and you go, rightio, well, I'll go back because I found what I'm looking for, and it's not there anymore. Not there because the market is so active and there's so much going on that within 24 hours or less, the equipment that you thought you could get your hands on is gone. So it's the quick and the dead. Prices are obviously, I guess, on the up, but that's a state of a boom. And I mentioned in a couple of the interviews that we've done in the last few weeks that if we're not in a boom, it's on our doorstep. But I actually truly believe we're actually experiencing it. We're on it. And you did mention that this nickel market as we move ahead and the thematic of the EV. I mean, that is absolutely real. I mean, you saw what Boris Johnson's government are now doing. They're looking to ban motor vehicles by 2030. There's going to be a massive push into electric vehicles. In fact, in the last 3 months alone, the UK have sold more electric vehicles in the last 3 months in the UK than in the entire year that they did the year before. So the uptick and the usage of EV or the EV push, and then the usage of these specialty metals like nickel, lithium, cobalt, etc., and nickel being the key ingredient in these things, is there's enormous demand, and that's coming, and we're seeing it, and that's why there's so much activity and there's so much excitement around nickel discoveries and nickel businesses at the moment, because it's the place to be. And if you want to be somewhere exciting, you've just got to be in nickel. There's for me, the writing's on the wall, and we've been seeing it for a while, but we're seeing it almost on a constant basis now, on a daily basis, that there's a more push to green. There's more pushes towards EV and electric vehicles, and that only means one thing: a shortage of nickel and an increase in nickel price. And those that are in the nickel game, they're going to be well rewarded. And those that are discovering nickel, probably even more so, because you're discovering nickel at a low cost. If you can find nickel at 3 and 4 cents a pound or less, and you're selling it for $10, $15 a pound in the future, that's a very, very good return. So that's why we're here. That's why we're in the business of nickel. It's an extremely exciting place to be. It's very dynamic, and I think over the next few years is going to be extremely important, and it's going to be a very buoyant time.
Absolutely. And that is the macro overview. And then, bringing it into the specific with Estrella, I think that, certainly, when you have the right thematic and then you have the right specific, you're certainly going to make a lot of money. Also, I think that one thing, just to sum up, also from a drilling perspective, one of the things that you have done differently than in the past is just go a little bit deeper. Can you just explain once more for people that aren't quite so familiar with it, just how is it that Estrella's been able to take land that frankly has been explored before, but you've done a far better job on it? Can you just describe that about going deeper?
Yeah, Greg, I guess there's a few factors there. History over time and history, things do get developed and technologies get developed and things become a little bit easier to do. If you think back in 1965 and late 60s, drilling a diamond hole and drilling a surface hole with old equipment, they didn't even have wireline diamond drilling where they couldn't even pull the core out. You had to pull the entire drill string out to be able to pull out the core or the sample that they were trying to retrieve at certain depths. And the depths 100, 150 metres, and they're drilling those surface depths where, more often than not, the rock and the stability of the rocks actually quite fractured and oxidised and quite possible that it was going to fall in. So when you pull your drill string out to go back down the hole, sometimes problematic. So the wireline and the improvements in technology has allowed us to drill deeper holes with more power. The equipment that we use now compared to the 1960s and 70s is a lot more power in these systems, and they're obviously a lot safer. The environment that the guys are working in is a lot more comfortable. They're not in gypsy camps. They're not struggling in 40-degree heat. They're actually a little bit more comfortable, and they can drill these holes with better equipment and more power, so they can get deeper, and that becomes more cost efficient. So you can actually drill holes deeper and more cost efficient, which for a small company like Estrella and others, you can have, I guess, the guts to go and drill a deep hole, because yes, it's going to cost you some money, but it's not going to cost you the earth. And it cost them the earth basically in the 1960s and 70s to drill these holes. And hence that's why they only drilled 150 metres and at best 200 metres. Now, what we have seen in the course of the journey with some of these nickel sulfide bodies is that they do actually sit quite deep. They are, I guess, derived from the mantle plumes very deep down and work their way up and then create these intrusive bodies. And their setting is actually quite deep within the lithostructure of the Earth's crust. And as such, when you get to these bodies, you have to actually look quite deep to find them. And hence, that's why we're seeing sub sort of 200, 300 metres, quite a number of nickel sulfide ore bodies that have been discovered by this deep drilling. But not only that, it's the geophysical technology and downhole geophysics that's come in absolute leaps and bounds over the years. I think I've said in the past, back in 2002 or 3 or 4, when we first got into nickel exploration ourselves, you could potentially see away from the hole 10, 15 metres at best with certainty. Now we're seeing with more power, better efficiency in the transmitters and receivers, the technology is so much greater that we can see, and the power of these systems so much greater that we can see further distances from the hole. And once again, it becomes a case of economics that you can drill holes further apart and see further and see more geology. When we drilled these deep holes at T5, it was purely stratigraphic in nature. We wanted to see the geology, and then we wanted to attack it with the modern technology to see some distance from the hole. Fortunately for us, we hit T5, we hit mineralisation. And not only that, we're now using that key technology to see around the hole and then pinpoint where we drill our next holes and obviously follow our way in. I think I mentioned last time we managed to hit the toenail of the elephant. I think we might have hit the toe. I still think we've got to find the leg and the body, but that's coming. We've got the drill rigs turning. I think in the next few weeks we'll have another few holes into the EM plate. We'll survey again, and that'll see further out and a further distance, and then we'll attack it again. If we have to drill deep, we will drill deep. If we have to follow it north and south, we'll follow it north and south. But we have the technology to do it, and we have it within a reasonably cost-effective within cost-effective boundaries to do it. But when you're drilling nickel sulfides and you're hitting nickel sulfides, and the one drill hole you drill puts on 100 million on your market cap, you understand why we're drilling these holes and why we're spending the money, because they're extremely valuable.
Absolutely. And I think also my closing thought is it builds conviction is the key thematic in my mind anyway, that, hey, listen, this isn't a one-off. There's something there. There's something that you're doing differently. The story makes sense, if you will. Chris, please keep us up with everything. But do you have any closing remarks for the audience?
Look, Greg, I appreciate that. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate the shareholders from listening in. And I'll say it again, strap yourself in, shareholders, if you're out there. It's going to get a pretty wild ride from here. It's very exciting. Thanks very much, and talk again soon.
Thanks.
Greg.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching another presentation by 180 Markets. Don't forget, if you want access to thousands of ASX capital raises, head on over to 180markets.com.au, sign up, and get on board for our very next capital raise. Thanks for watching.